Good morning. I'd like to go to the next passage that we're going to look at in the book of John, and this would be John chapter 8, starting at just one verse, actually, in verse 48. It says, "The Jews responded to him, 'Aren't we right in saying that you're a Samaritan and have a demon?'" Okay, so that is the verse that we want to talk about today in this particular passage, and it's really kind of interesting, and it's always an interesting study for me. But if you remember yesterday, we talked a little bit about this actually the same passage leading into this, except for we didn't include this verse yesterday. But if you remember, Jesus, he honors his father in verse 48, but in the verses before, and we come up to verse 48. It says, look at this passage from last week, as I want to talk to you about this. It says in John chapter 8, verse 44 through 47, it says, you are your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and has not stood in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he tells a lie, he speaks from his own nature, because he is a liar and the father of lies. Yet because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Who among you can convict me of sin? If I tell you the truth, why don't you believe me? The one who is from God listens to God's words. That is why you don't listen, because you're not from God. Okay, so that's Jesus coming back to him. And the Samaritan is interesting, because if you look at John chapter 4, verse 16 through 26, Samaritan, I want to talk about what Samaritan means. Samaritan is of a Hebrew origin, if you will, and it's made up of two root words. And the first one of the two is kind of really interesting. And the first one is shomeron, and the Hebrew, or the word Hebrew, means watch, station, and a place in Palestine. The second is shamar, and this word is to guard, to protect, to hedge about, to keep, and they consider themselves to be the keepers of the law. Now, it's interesting, because uh, we actually see this in First Kings chapter 12, verses 25 through 33, the making of the golden calves, and the kingdoms have split, and they made golden calves. They started the festivals, uh, so that people wouldn't go to Jerusalem and move to Jerusalem, so that the northern kingdom wouldn't lose people to the southern kingdom every festival that came along. So they made their own. Okay, and this is the problem that they had. That God had with that, is the mixing of the gods. So the making of the calves was the start of that, and we see it again, actually, in Second King chapter 17, about 722 BC. And if you look at Second Kings chapter 17, verses 24 through 29, the problem is seen in this passage, as they were mixing both their own idols with the Torah, or with the law, and had to live, okay, and where they lived. And so we also see it in 2 Kings 17:41. They didn't listen and continued to practice their former customs. And it says that they feared God, but also served other idols. So they had not gotten rid of the other idols. This argument actually goes back to Genesis 22, 1 through 14. When we look at this passage, we see that God providing a sacrifice, and is being said that this is the mountain of his provision, Moriah, or Mount Zion. Okay. The Samaritan Torah, actually in Genesis 22:14, says Abraham called Mount Moriah Shemar. We'll see, and in that mountain where he called it that, he will be in vision, and not Jehovah Jireh will be, which is God, be seen, meaning where his provision will be seen. Okay, so at Mount Moriah, it also is where David purchased the threshing floor for 600 shekels of gold in First Chronicles chapter 21. And it is the place where Solomon built the temple in Second Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1. The Samaritan reject that according to Deuteronomy 11:26 and 29, and say it is Mount Gerizim. And actually, Mount Gerizim is where they would pronounce a blessing over Israel if Israel was following the Torah or following the law. And as the right place, based on the passage, is at Mount Ebal. Ebal is a Hebrew word, is Ebal, and it means bald or bare, and it's a representation of a curse that gets spoken over them for not following the Torah. Mount Gerizim was for a blessing for following Torah or for following the law. If you look at Deuteronomy chapter 27, verses 11 through 26, they were to stand on Mount Gerizim, proclaim a blessing, and on Ebal to proclaim a curse. Okay, so if you look at those, that's where they decided to change from the Mount Moriah or Zion to Gerizim, and they hold to that. Sychar is where Jesus is meeting with the woman, the woman that from the well, and if you remember that, it's interesting because because of the mixing of the gods, the rabbis believed that they were cursed, the land was cursed, and they were defiled and in every way. So they wouldn't even go into those areas. They took wide circles around them and would go clear across the river and bypass Samaria altogether because they felt that they were defiled, and if they felt if they went into those areas, it would defile them as well. So this is what's taking place, okay? And they're dead set that these people are cursed, and yet Jesus himself went into Samaritan, went at Sychar, uh, is where he went and talked to the woman at the well, and actually presented the gospel to her, and the whole town ended up giving their life to as they came out and began to listen to his words. In fact, even the disciples were shocked. So anyway, as you look at this whole thing, uh, we could actually get really messed up. Okay, when we do something that is without the right information. Okay, number one, it usually starts because we hate somebody or don't like them or whatever, and then we look for things that that we can get them on, or whatever, that you can separate from them and put them down in some way and make it look like that they're the bad guy. And that's exactly what's going on here as we get into this passage. And if and this is exactly what it says in John chapter 8, verse 48. It says, the Jews responded to him, aren't we right in saying that you're a Samaritan and have a demon? Okay, that's completely ridiculous, because this is the second time that they've accused him of coming from some place that he didn't come from. Okay, and they accused him, remember, of being born in Nazareth, and even made the comment. The comment was made about him: can anything good come from Nazareth? They weren't putting Nazareth down. What they were saying is that there was no prophecy about a prophet or Messiah coming out of Nazareth. Okay, but there was a prophecy coming out of Bethlehem, and he was actually born in Bethlehem. So that's where he came from. And so they had this total misinformation going on about who he was, where he was from, and just what was going on with him. But the thing is that he was drawing the crowd away from them, and people were going to him to find out, because he was profound in the things that he said. And so that they were jealous. That actually kind of sent them over the fence. And so they begin to build a story about him based upon misinformation. And you know what? They did it publicly. And isn't that the way it works when we decide that we want to get somebody out of our life, and we want to make it public, and we want to just get it done? Is that there's a whole lot of misinformation that goes along. We listen to gossip sometimes, and grab that gossip as if it was gospel, and that's a problem, and it's a big problem, and it's happening here. In fact, what it did was it uh, it progressed long enough, even in the trial, as we'll find out. Even in the trial, they couldn't come up with anything solid to convict him on, and that's what he asked them. He says, "Can you convict me of any sin?" And we're going to see that. Okay, so this is stuff that we really need to take care of, and we need to really watch and make sure that we're not participating in. We need to know the facts, okay? And until we do, we need to probably keep our mouth shut, maybe talk to them and find out a little bit more about them, or whatever it is. But to go off half cocked and proclaim publicly misinformation is just not the way to do things. And this coming from the leadership as well. You have a great day.